They essentially just feel like they are always failing, and so they protect themselves by pulling back. And if you have a partner who's pulling back, what you want to remember is like they are likely, without you realizing it, feeling very criticized. All right, my loves, welcome back to the Sex After Kids podcast. We are in episode 4 of our mental load series. And in our final little episode here, I want to talk about the load of who is carrying your relationship and why it is killing your desire. So, little question, right, that might sting a little is like, who is actually managing your relationship? Like the actual relationship between the two of you. Because in most couples, the emotional labor of the relationship quietly gets assigned to one person and nobody ever votes on it. Although I will say, I would be curious to hear from y'all if you find there's a distinction in your home between who is caring for like the overall emotional quality and tone of your relationship and who is caring and putting emphasis on sex in your relationship, because sometimes those two are mixed together. They should be mixed together. But sometimes we've got one person pushing for the sex piece and intimacy and connection piece, and one person who's kind of checking for the like bigger emotional tone of the relationship. And when one person kind of becomes the default relationship manager, desire doesn't just fade because the spark is gone. It fades because safety, softness, and that mutuality, that team-based feeling slowly disappears, right? This all comes down to like, do you have my back? Are we holding each other? Like both of us, okay? And I want to like call out a little bit here that like often it's the women who are saying like, are we okay? Are we whatever? Often it's the anxiously attached person, which can be men or women if we get into attachment styles. But also I see a lot of female partners kind of in like shutdown around this, who are like essentially, our relationship is fine. What's your problem? And that, my friends, is called gaslighting. It is not hearing your partner and what is really underneath what they are asking for. Most of the time when men in particular are asking for sex, they're actually asking for connection. It's just sex is like the only vocabulary they have to speak around that. What they're looking for is to feel loved. They're looking to feel in love. They're looking to feel appreciated. And they're looking to feel like their appreciation of you and their love of you is appreciated and reciprocated. So regardless of your gender, if your partner is telling you, like, I'm struggling to feel connected with you in our relationship, I don't feel that way, you are imagining it, is not an okay answer, okay? I love you, but it's not an okay answer. And if you want to talk about that, book a free spark session with me and let's discuss, okay? Today, I want to talk about what the invisible work is of tending a relationship, why it's real labor, how the sort of like manager assistant dynamic, whether it comes to all mental load or the mental load of your relationship, quietly kills erotic energy, and how to shift back into a teammate dynamic that actually brings desire back online. So, what are some of the tasks, the labor involved in like managing your relationship? Because relationship labor isn't just lighting candles or planning date night or special occasion sex or putting in the effort to fuck your partner even when you don't want to. It also looks like initiating the hard conversations, like in the last episode when I sat at the kitchen table and said, I'm feeling resentment, I'm feeling contempt, like we need to do something about this. I think we need to bring in a helper to have a more effective conversation. It means tracking emotional distance, which means paying attention to how close you both seem to feel to each other. It means naming tension in the room and being able to say, like, things kind of feel off. Can we just have a moment and check in? I will tell you, side note, that this is one of the reasons I married my partner, is in even like our first couple of weeks of dating, we had a particularly challenging night with his kiddo. Bedtime took like forever, and we were trying to like have sex and all the things, and I basically got stuck like waiting in his bedroom for hours. And he came in, he had made tea, he brought a candle, and he was just like, can we have a check-in? So being the person to be like, can we just talk about what needs to be talked about, is a big part of the work, right? repairing after conflict, making the apology, fixing things that need to get fixed, holding the fear of are we okay? And some people hold on to that fear too much from their parenting wounds, and some people don't hold on to it at all. And oftentimes those people marry each other. Remembering to check in, being the person to ask for the date night, to insist on booking the time, being the person to book the babysitter, being the person to like make the date possible, choosing the date, thinking about what we're going to do together, making invitations for new sexual things we're going to do together, asking your partner what you could do differently, all of these things, and regulating each other, regulating ourselves, and trying to regulate our partner. And all of this is labor. It's effort, it's energy, it's courage, it's nervous system work. And when only one person is carrying this load or most of it, that person eventually feels very lonely, very over-responsible. Unchosen would be the biggest word I could say here. Unsexy and just depleted. And we have language, and I can't forget the IG. I can't remember the Instagram creator I recently saw that on. It's popping up in my feed quite a bit, but we have the notion of the burnt out pursuer, which is the person who is like, I need more. I want more connection. Can we talk about our relationship? Can we go on more date nights? And the other partner's like, we're fine. It doesn't matter. It's okay. And then you get so burnt out from like chasing this person who was supposed to have chosen you that you like leave, or you give up and shut down and close off in your own relationship. And it's not because you don't love your partner. It's just that love without reciprocity turns into duty. And we also want to speak to, though, like when we're overly chasing and in that dynamic of like needing from our partner, sometimes because we don't have a life outside of our own relationship and we're getting all of our intimacy from this one person, that can feel overwhelming to our partner as well. So what often happens then is we end up in this manager-assistant dynamic, right? Where one person is the emotional manager, the initiator, the checker-inner, the leader. They're the ones like taking the lead all the time. They're the one who feels responsible for us. They're the one who feels like if I don't carry this, it's going to disintegrate and melt and die, and I'm not willing to let that happen. So I will hold the torch. But then by default, the other person becomes the responder, the reactor, the one who waits for the cue, sometimes because there's actually like the other person jumps in to fill the space so quickly, there's no room for the other partner to even step up. The one who assumes that things are fine unless being told otherwise, and sometimes the one who says things are fine even when they're being told otherwise, even when they're being told their partner is not feeling okay. And this is the emotional version of overfunctioner and underfunctioner. And the uncomfortable truth here is that in both cases, neither person is better here. We are not over glamorizing overfunctioners as like perfect. I hope I have laced enough into this conversation. And there's a woman, I am Lindsay Lockett. I think I'll try to put her in the show notes. I've been following her content lately around breaking this addiction to being the overfunctioner and not recognizing that you have work to do as the overfunctioner, especially if you want your underfunctioner to change. They can't and won't change necessarily if you're not doing your work, right? So each person has to do their own work. There's no faultlessness in being the overfunctioner. This is a pattern where both people are fucking up, okay? And when we get stuck there, nobody feels turned on by someone that they feel responsible for, and people don't feel turned on when they feel like they're being sort of like caretaken, right? There's no erotic energy when we have a caregiver and a dependent. We need two independent, functioning adults who are separate from each other but connected to be choosing one another. And that is where intimacy really thrives. I mean, if you think about it, like when do you think your partner is there at their sexiest? And like Esther Perel talks about this in Mating in Captivity, where we get so enmeshed as couples that like you get turned on when you see your partner at a work conference and you're watching them like rock their shit, the part of their world that has nothing to do with you. When they are other from you in your life and separate from you, you're like, damn, boy. But when you're all enmeshed in each other's stuff, it's harder to have that distance that creates the tension, that creates the desire. So I have hinted at it too, but I want to talk about anxious and avoidant attachments in this. And if you're not familiar, very quick primer, and I am by no means an expert on this, but like attachment style is developed by like how you were loved when you were growing up. So you can be anxiously attached in the sense that you always felt like you had to like work for love and like earn love and prove that you were worth love. And you're in this like not sure the other person loves you. So you're constantly seeking validation and proof that you are loved. You have an avoidant person who often was like so traumatized they just get cut off, right? They're like, fuck you. I'm building a wall because your love is unreliable. I don't need you. I'm fine. And then you can have disorganized, which is like a mix of all of them. And then you can have stable, which is just like with attachment, you can think about testing attachment with a baby where like if a toddler stays with a stranger in a room and the parent leaves, a normal reaction would be that the child would get upset because their stable parent figure left, but that they could self-soothe in the trust that that parent was going to return. An anxious kid would really feel like their parent wasn't going to return and probably freak out the whole time. And an avoidant kid would barely notice that their parent left or returned because they like went into like dissociation of the pain. Like, I don't want to feel the discomfort of you leaving or coming back. So I'm just going to like pretend it doesn't matter to me. Okay. So you can see here how it's not always, but there can be a matchup between anxious attachment and overfunctioning and avoidant attachment and underfunctioning, because an anxious partner usually becomes the relationship carrier, partially because these dysfunctional patterns that they have where they're chasing connection, they're tracking emotional shifts, they're feeling separation in their body very fast. And they often put too much weight on their partner's love to help them feel okay inside about themselves, which can suffocate their partner and make them distance themselves more. Underneath it all can be this belief of like, if you love me enough, then I can love me. And sometimes we can be fairly stable, but we enter into a relationship with a more avoidant person and we become more anxiously attached to this particular person over time. So that pressure, even when it's never spoken, can feel very suffocating. And so the avoidant partner, on the other hand, feels overwhelmed by the emotional intensity. They experience those bids, those asks for closeness as criticism and judgment instead of as invitations. They essentially just feel like they are always failing, and so they protect themselves by pulling back. And if you have a partner who's pulling back, what you want to remember is like they are likely, without you realizing it, feeling very criticized. And so that doesn't mean you stop giving feedback just because they interpret it as criticism. It's that you have a conversation to name what's happening. And sometimes we need to work with a therapist to help us see this dynamic and get out of it, especially if our partner can't see their own style. When they're avoidant, they might not even be able to name that because a lot of avoidants are tuning out from their own emotions. So they can't even tell you that what you're doing is like hurting them because they're disconnected from it. So now you've got one partner chasing for safety, one partner distancing for safety. Different strategies, same goal, total collision. So a couple of examples I kind of wanted to add in, right? So there's like dads that I talked to recently who are the sole income earner. They're doing most of the drops offs and pickup. They've hired the cleaner and the person who's like helping to cook meals and stuff. Their partner has ample opportunity to like do her nails and like do things that fill her up, certainly in like their perspective. Dad describes himself as actively engaged in the kiddo's life, feels like he doesn't have any free time to do his own thing. And he gets this very harsh brush off, what the fuck do you want from me, when asking for just a cuddle or to watch a show together, no pressure. So here we have a partner who's like constantly asking for connection, bending over backwards to take over the mental load to like ease their partner's load so that they can get more affection. But now the affection's gotten transactional and it's all just created like more pressure on a partner who is not aware of their pattern and who's gaslighting their partner's need for connection. But we can also have examples where we have partners who get so tired of bringing up any feedback because their partner just gets defensive and goes into attack mode, pointing out all their flaws in return instead of hearing one piece of reflection, right? So an example might be like me saying, hey, babe, I'd love it if we could have date nights more often. And my partner being like, well, you know what you are terrible at? This and this and this and this and this. So again, they didn't take the moment to just like hear what I said and go, and not necessarily, and gosh, I would link to some of the communication episodes here, right? Like this is not necessarily about agreeing with what your partner said, but it's about validating that that's experience. That is their experience. So when you respond with attack when a partner is giving you feedback, that is something to look at and explore, because it means there's defensiveness there that's rising instead of curiosity that's going to give solutions. Another example of people that I talk to here is like trying everything. So you like buy the sexy lingerie, you buy the fancy toys, you do anything to get your partner to like look at you sexually, but you're still parenting your partner day to day. You're still involved in a lot of the mental load. You're still telling them all the time that they're not measuring up and they can't do anything right. And then it becomes this self-fulfilling loop where the more you parent them, the more they become a child. And that dynamic does not create this like eroticism that we are looking for. And the last piece that I want to talk about here is just like what we focus on grows. And you can link back here to the episode that I did. I forget the number. It was like my best parenting hacks for managing your relationship. And when you are stuck in a perspective of always looking at where your partner's falling short, always looking at what's going wrong with your relationship, always looking at like what's not happening, you will stay stuck in that zone if you are not taking the time to like look at what is going right and how you can add more of that, to look at what you can appreciate about what your partner. The more we look at the good side, the more we see more of the good things. And that's not to gaslight ourselves into perfection when things are hard, but it is to say that when you are always looking at the negative, you will create a self-fulfilling prophecy of there always being the negative as well. All right, couple more pieces here. Codependency, right? Another topic we can talk about. But this loop of overfunctioning and underfunctioning, this loop of anxious and avoidant attachment over time can harden into codependency. And codependency really looks like I need you to love me so that I can love me. And it scrambles desire on both sides because the anxious partner feels desperate and unchosen, and the avoidant partner feels very trapped and like a constant disappointment. So no one feels powerful, no one feels safe, no one feels truly freely desired. And codependency has a lot to do with like over reliance on each other, right? Like the goal in a healthy relationship is what we call interdependence. So codependency is our cultural norm for relationship. It's the royal we. It's the I can't live without you romance movies and songs we've all grown up with. It's the my life doesn't exist without you in it. It's that kind of perspective. I think of it as like two trees that have like completely collapsed and become one trunk. But like you can build a life with somebody where you're two trees next to each other, standing tall, sharing sunlight, sharing shade, sharing a root structure, supporting one another, but not fully collapsed into each other. And what that means is that I know me, I feel solid in who I am, I have boundaries, and I'm loving, and you are too. And that is ultimately the skill that we need over time in order to create a relationship that feels healthy and not toxic. Codependency is very toxic, and it's no wonder we all fall into that trap. I should probably do a whole series on codependency because it's essentially the relationship template from the universe that we get. By that, I mean from our culture. And codependency, to me, as someone who's been trained in like sexualized violence and violent relationships, codependency to me is the root of violence in our relationships because it creates the jealousy and the holding on too tight and the controlling of another person that can start out small and then really amplify to like physical and emotional abuse. So just another element here to think about when we're looking at like who is doing the caretaking for the relationship, who is being gaslit, right? Like in a healthy dynamic, I have my feelings and you will hear them, and you have your feelings and I will hear them, and we will work together to create a strategy that honors you and me and us, right? That's been a big tenet of my marriage since I met my partner, before we were even married. So what's the reframe, right? The heart of all this conflict is not a lack of love. Okay, you both can love each other and have survival mechanisms in your bodies from childhood that undermine your ability to love your person. Your partner is never actively trying to destroy the relationship, but their inner child is fucking petrified of getting hurt, and it's throwing every protection that it has at staying safe. So chasing is a protection mechanism. Shutting down is a protection mechanism, right? Defensiveness is a protection mechanism. Withdrawing is a protection mechanism. Avoiding sex is a protection mechanism. We've talked so much about how sex can be a not safe, not fun, not relaxing place for many of you to go, which is why you don't want to go there. And the reminder, the lesson, the opportunity is the more your body is asking you not to do something, the more that's a big old flag that there's opportunity for you there. And if you listen to, whenever I aired, I did a bonus episode about somatic healing, but I talked about how there was a part of my body that was feeling a lot of pain, and every part of me was like, get away from that pain. And then I was like, what if I just took a deep breath and I sat with that pain? And the pain went away because I was willing to not take the signals to fuck off and instead take the signals to fuck off as an invitation to just sit with me. It's like when your partner's throwing defensiveness or attack at you, right? Instead of you going into defense, instead of you going into attack right back, what if you just sat and you saw the hurting person in front of you and you said, wow, it looks like you're really hurting. And I'm not going to be your punching bag. That's your boundary. But I am here to let you just pour it out if you want to do that. Okay. So when you look at your partner and you see defensiveness and you see attack, what you're seeing is armor and a scared little kid underneath. And when you can start to see that scared little kid underneath those behaviors, something changes because it means one of you needs to show up as the adult in the moment to invite that person back into their adult self as well, right? Now we're not negotiating the wound, we're meeting the fear underneath it. And like I just said, we're not tolerating bad behavior, but we are stepping out of the dance, the dynamic, the pattern, okay? What's the bottom line? What do we want to do instead here? I think the bottom line is to remember, and I think I've done an episode on this, but the real P and V in your sex life. A really good sex life doesn't come from a penis going in a vagina, and we all know that by now. But what it comes from is actually your ability to connect with your own pleasure and your ability to be vulnerable. And so whoever is doing the chasing, whoever's doing the asking, whoever's doing the labor when it comes to your relationship, whether it's asking for sex, asking for a handhold, asking if we can talk about our relationship and how things are going, asking if we can talk about our life and how to design it better, there's a fuck ton of vulnerability involved in saying, I don't feel met and I love you and I want things to change. It's terrifying. And when someone isn't met over and over and over and over and over, like I've talked to partners who are like the shake when they try to bring something up with their partner because they've been so invalidated. And I've talked about this before, but like for the women listening, like your partner's sex drive is not a bad, evil, pervy, disgusting thing. It might feel that way, especially if it's not being unleashed in you in the proper ways. Especially if you've been taught your whole life that men are bad, evil, and that their desire for sex is bad and evil, but it's not a bad and evil thing. And every time you say, I'm fine with no sex, what's wrong with you? You're saying there's something wrong with your body, your need, your desire. And it's just patently not true. You might have a mismatch in how you connect with that, which is something you can work with if you know how. And that's what we do in the Naked Fun Comeback. That's what we do in my programs together. That's what I teach you to do. Okay. And ultimately, this is about getting to a place where both of you are a team. Both of you initiate. Both of you check in. Both of you are taking the emotional temperature. Both of you are noticing the distance. Both of you are repairing and rupturing. Both of you are protecting the relationship from drifting into neglect. Okay. Because if I'm talking to you and you've got a less than 2 or 3-year-old, you are in the zone and I want you both just holding on to your hands in the dark so that when your kid's 5, you don't want a divorce. Okay. So that you can rebuild at that phase. But I'm also talking to a lot of people who are empty nesting or close to empty nesting. And one person's going like, okay, the last 20 years have been a ride and I have let sex go and I'm okay with that. But I'm not willing to do the next 20 years without any emotional closeness anymore and any physical closeness. And the other person's like, I'm used to the groove we've got. I'm good. And we need to talk together about whether that's okay and what we want to build. And being in an emotionally mature relationship means you're both willing to go, what is it that I want? Okay, well, if I don't want sex anymore for the rest of my life, like maybe being with you is not the thing. Or maybe we can find a way to refine that part of ourselves, right? Like some of this is just habit. The bottom line is we're teammates. We're not keeping score. We are always focused on us against the problem, us actively building the life that we want to live, being the parents we want to be, being the humans we want to be, being the spouse that we want to be. So, a simple little check-in you can use. You could do it once a week. Takes you less than 3 minutes. How connected do you feel to me right now? 0 to 10. 10 being like, oh my God, so in love, so good, so whatever. 0 being like, fuck off, get out of this room. And what would move that number up by 1 point? Just 1 point. This is like our 10 spot check-in, okay? No defending, no fixing, just listening. And this alone can be part of restoring that safety in couples who feel totally lost. Okay, one last piece I want to say about change, right? The hard reality is that you cannot force your partner to change. You cannot emotionally mature for them. You cannot reparent their inner child on your timeline, and you cannot force them to see their own shit. Okay? What you can do is change how you show up. And when you do that, it will help to see people to see their own stuff. You can stop chasing at the cost of your dignity. You can stop disappearing to keep the peace. You can stop armoring up. You can stop armoring your heart and calling it logic. You can learn to stand up for yourself and love your partner at the same time. This is a very key relationship skill set. And sometimes, this is the heartbreaking part, your partner both loves you and cannot meet you where you need them to. And that doesn't make them a villain, but it also doesn't mean that you should abandon yourself. Both things can be true. They can love you and not have the skill to meet you where you need to be met. And it becomes your decision to be patient and wait for that shift to happen or to leave. And my last sort of side note is like, so many people I talk to get defensive about therapy because they think it means like they're broken. And, I hear sort of this like, we're capable, intelligent people. Like, why do we need counseling? And I think of counseling like this, okay? Counseling is a place to go when you've had the same conversation over and over and over and you can't seem to hear each other. And I want you to think of hiring a counselor as like hiring a translator. This person's going to translate what your partner's saying into a language that you can understand and is going to translate what you're trying to say into a language that your partner can understand. A therapist is also going to like referee the conversation a little bit and help you get out of unproductive patterns where you just get defensive or throw anger at your partner again or divert or shut down, and instead invite you to see, okay, like you're shutting down. What's happening for you? How can we keep you active in this conversation without shutting down? Or, oh, you're getting defensive. Like, how can we keep you active in this conversation and present to it without having to protect yourself? That's what therapy is. And the earlier you call in a therapist, the more effective it's going to be because you're learning skills that you can work into the process instead of just having to spend all your time doing repair. If you think about therapy as going to see someone who's going to help teach you the skills of relationality, which is what this is all about, my friends. Sex is a social skill, and none of us have great social skills. We've learned codependency. We've learned, avoidance strategies and anxious strategies, protection strategies to keep ourselves safe, and they sabotage us. And of course, we marry our work. We marry the person who's going to trigger that old button. So you can think of therapy as the enemy. You can think of therapy as like for dumb people who can't figure it out, but it's not, okay? And the earlier you go, even when things don't feel that big, but you're just like, we keep having the same conversation and like not hearing each other, like go hire your translator and see what it does for you. And ultimately, like this is why I designed the Naked Fun Comeback to be done as a team. So this is my signature program, my 4-month program for parents who want to get out of infrequent, irregular, lackluster sex and back to regular, easy, consistent, and playful intimacy. You can absolutely start solo and learn how to change the dance from what I call like a clenched up foxtrot into something that actually feels like a waltz. But the heart of the work is that in 30-minute date nights a week, we are finding connection again. We are bringing play back online. We are rebuilding passion, and we are learning how to work as teammates again instead of as opponents. So if you're in the place where your partner like absolutely will not 100% refuses to talk about your sex life at all with you, then I would say therapy is your best route. If you are both able to engage in tentative, awkward, and uncomfortable conversations about sex and you want some help with that, then book a free spark session with me. Let's talk about where you are both struggling. You can book together. You can each book your own time with me, and you can book alone even if your partner's not quite ready to participate yet. But let's talk about whether this is a method that's going to work for you, and let's build a customized roadmap for you so that we're not fighting about sex anymore. We are playing naked together. All right, my friends, that has been our session on the mental load. I would love to hear what you thought. I would love to hear your biggest takeaways. Find me on Instagram. Let me know in the comments. Follow, like, share, subscribe, all of the things. I will see you in January, and I don't have a preview for you. I'm not sure. There's so many things I want to talk about, and we've got to get ready for Valentine's Day. I have something very exciting coming. It's going to be a live date night event on Valentine's Day weekend. Make sure that you are subscribed to my newsletter, which you can do on my homepage at intimacyafterkids.com if you want to get the inside scoop and early bird pricing. And I will talk to you in the DMs. Bye, my friends.